Welcome to ACC Nation, featuring sports news and special guest interviews. Here's Will Ojanen and Jim Quist.
This is ACC Nation, and that's Will Ojanen. I'm Jim Quist. Time to take a look at Week 0 football action. 2 games, big games, because we get a look at 3 teams in the ACC. A little unusual to have 2 teams within the conference playing each other, in this particular instance in Dublin, Ireland. And then, of course, our newbie, SMU. And so we're going to start out with that big game first, Will. Let's talk a little bit about Florida State, ranked number 10, against an unranked Georgia Tech team. And it was interesting, our conversations that we had in previewing both teams. Those guys gave us some great insight and made us feel like, well, maybe this is a game we ought to be watching very closely. It didn't surprise us any.
I mean, it did, but it didn't surprise the outcome. Yes, surprised. The fact that it was close, not necessarily. I mean,
right.
I posted on Twitter. I still call it Twitter. I don't care what that guy says, but it's still Twitter to me, damn it. I said 34-24 in favor of the Noles. Like, I thought it was going to be close throughout. I figured their running game was just going to overpower the Georgia Tech defense, because when we last saw Georgia Tech, they were Swiss cheese on defense.
Yep.
It's amazing what a competent coach will do for a program. I swear. Yep. I mean, what Tyler Santucci did with that defense in that game, he's going to be a head coach here in a fairly short order within the next couple of years. I feel if he's going to do that. I mean, yeah, we can also say it might be something to do with the Florida State offense, but I still like Florida State, at least, longer term. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say maybe there's more to Georgia Tech than we think.
I'm going to go down that route as well. I think both Florida State and Georgia Tech showed us who they are in a lot of different ways. And to be honest with you, I can't come away with too many negatives here. I know everybody was jumping all over DJU, and I'm not so sure that's the issue that we're talking about here. I think that people underestimated Georgia Tech, grossly underestimated. You're right. You've got a coach there that can work miracles. Mike Norvell has worked miracles with Florida State. These are 2 tough teams. All I'm going to say going forward, if they continue to play like that, we may actually see them again in the ACC championship. Now, everybody's going to be sitting there going, no, it's going to be this team. It's going to be this team. It's going to be that team. I'm already hearing all of the idiots like Feinbaum, who are running their mouths about who he thinks is going to be in the ACC championship. He may not be wrong. He's still an idiot. I look at just one game. It's the beginning of the season. It's week 0, first game. You're in Dublin. It's a neutral site. None of this should be surprising to anybody about how these teams performed, other than I thought they played a hell of a game. I was on the edge of my seat through that entire game, Will, and it's been a long time since I've seen a game that exciting and that well executed. Minor problems, those are the types of things that you pick away at with looking at video, and you clean them up in second week, third week, and then you're on a roll. So overall, what do you think the weakest point of either side was in this game?
I'd have to go back and watch again to see, but I wonder if Florida State's offensive line is not all cracked up to me. You look at what they did on the ground. They should have done a lot more. You figure they have the good backs and everything, but they averaged 3.2 yards per carry in the game yesterday, not even 100 yards rushing. They had most of that. They had 66 yards rushing in the first quarter. So it tells you my Minnesota math tells me they had 32 yards rushing the rest of the game.
Minnesota man.
Um,
Okay.
it's more like I was saying that it's like they had 128 yards in the first quarter and 291 total. So almost close to half of it came in that first quarter when a lot of those plays were scripted. We saw on the opening drive for both teams just go right down the field on each other, no
Mhm.
problems whatsoever.
Yeah.
And then when things started to settle down, Florida State just couldn't get anything going consistently. There was a stat at halftime. I'm trying to think. I'm just trying to remember. It was, I think at halftime, DJU's air yards per attempt was negative 0.1 because they were just dumping off and then
Right.
throwing like, throwing little screens behind the line of scrimmage, and
Dink dunk.
they were just dinking and dunking to the max. And then they finally tried to stretch the field a little bit in the second half, and he was airmailing. There were a couple balls that you would have thought George Marason was at wide receiver. He'd probably been the only one that could have caught him, but that with as high as he was throwing.
Yeah, there's some question there that certainly needs to be looked at, and whether or not he's going to be the effective leader of that offense if you want to succeed and go the distance. On the other side of the ball, I thought the Georgia Tech defense was doing a great job penetrating. And you talk about Florida State's offensive line. Man, you want to talk about some beef on that line and experience? And it just seemed to me there were times where they just weren't up to the task. And I don't even know how to describe that. It just seemed like they were slow. And I don't know if that's Georgia Tech being that much quicker, much more effective, using their hands more effectively, and really getting after it. Um, what exactly that was, and I'll tell you what, we can look over all of this video for the rest of the week, and people who do this for a profession will come out and bring some solid analysis to this.
Mm-hmm.
I could just tell you that again, don't underestimate either one of these teams. I think that's a fool's errand if I've ever seen one.
Mm-hmm.
I was that first offensive drive by Florida State. Well, honestly, I was at that point. I was kind of going, "Ooh, Georgia Tech's about to have some sand pounded." Then Georgia Tech came out and did the same thing, and I'm going, what's going on here? And then things settled in, and it was just this pounding back and forth that was just an amazing football game. A couple of
Yeah.
people that definitely I want to shout out to here in a second. So
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say, I put this out yesterday as well on the Twitter machine. um, you could make an argument that Brent Key is just one of the best pure coaches in the ACC,
yeah,
just from the fact that you've seen where this program has come from the time he took over to now, and where the program was when they got rid of the disaster that was Jeff Collins. And they I think they were like right around 500 the last few games of the interim season,
mhm.
made a bowl last year, made a statement at game one this year. And I figure that I don't know if there's many more coaches that can just develop in the way him and the staff does. Like they don't get the elite talent, but I think he gets more out of his team than a lot of coaches do.
Yeah. Football player coaching football players, and it
Dudes
makes
coaching dudes.
yeah, it makes a huge difference. I tell you, Haynes King to me is did an enormous job. That offense was just smoking. There were some plays there. Jamal Haynes and Rutherford at running back were just doing some amazing things. And we talked about this um, on the preview with Kelly Quinlan about what Georgia Tech could do, and you brought up the fact that, hey, this is a team that last year was top offense producer in the ACC. Well, don't look now, but are we going to get a repeat? This is a solid offense.
Mm-hmm. I was intrigued by the fact I saw the stat too that I think each team only had like 7 possessions in the game. Because both teams ran the ball a lot. I mean, Georgia Tech ran the ball 36 times in the game, and Florida State 31. And there was a total of like Georgia Tech ran 52 plays in that game to Florida State's 58. So the game kind of went by fast. When you look at it that way, it was just a lot of pounding and ground and pound with the run game. And obviously Georgia Tech had more success when it, averaging over 5 yards per carry between Jamal Haynes and Haynes Keenan especially. But Alexander also ran the ball well. Chad Alexander, the other running back. So I think the most important thing for Georgia Tech now is to not fall on their face next week.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Georgia State, but you cannot have a letdown. I know you're going to be traveling back from Ireland to Georgia, but you have literally like 6 days to get ready. Where Florida State has until Labor Day night, so they have a little more of a cushion to prepare for the next game. You're going to have to readjust the body clock, and get back to practice, for this game.
Yeah, and it takes depending on the person, it takes a couple of days sometimes to readjust when you're going west to east and east to west. It messes with your clock, and until you experience that, until you do it on a regular basis, you don't fully appreciate just how much that wears you out. um, you know I think also special teams did a great job on both sides. I don't have anything, like I said, I don't have anything bad to say about either team here. And I was just impressed by how they got after the ball, how effective they were for the most part, in stopping, in a lot of instances, the other side. I thought it was a very even sort of thing. Let me just say that if you're among the fandom that that ended up getting on message boards and calling for the head of Mike Norvell or DJU or whomever, or the athletic director, yada yada yada. Go find another team. Seriously, oh my God, it's one game. Yes, it was important, but it's a lesson. It's a lesson. And if Florida State comes rolling back and wins everything else and goes to the playoffs, at that point you're really going to be eating a lot more than you can swallow. So
Yeah, let me go back to something you said on talking about special teams. I think it really says something when your kicker Aiden Burr, he had one other field goal attempt earlier in the game for 51 yards and he missed it, and you put him in a pressure situation, and it wasn't the prettiest kick. I thought at one point it was going to drift wide, but he made it, and it shows he's got a lot of confidence in his players. That being Brinke, and we're already hearing it about, oh no, the ACC is gonna suck. Its top team went down, and well, let's let this play out. We technically have 12 more weeks of this, so
yeah,
a lot more, or more than that really. But
there's 16 other teams.
yep. And
Don't crown somebody king before they earn it.
as the late Dennis Green once said, if you want to crown the ass.
Dennis always had a nice way of putting things.
Mhm.
We'll go down the schedule that's coming up because we have a Labor Day weekend full of games. We'll do that in just a moment. Let's talk about SMU and Nevada. Oh my God. Again, first game on the road. I'm not sure what I expected, but I will just say that I expected more than what I saw.
You saw a glimpse of winter.
I did a little flurry activity there in
Mm-hmm.
Reno. Nice.
Yes,
Thanks.
that was like all those games like out in like that part of the country where if you I don't know if you saw any of the game of New Mexico on Saturday where they had like really high winds, like it was just messing everything up. It was I think a camera fell off one of the things, but they had some crazy wind in Reno too for this game. It was
Little chilly.
a little chilly. I think the temperatures at one point dipped into the 40s,
Yeah.
which is very comfortable, which I would find very comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah.
But most everyone else would probably be in like 6 layers, and I'm just kidding.
Well, they had most of the people in locals had their heavy coats on.
Mhm.
And when I first tuned in, I was sort of like, what? Um, oh, speaking of which, CBS Sports cut off the very end of that game on their stream. And shame on you, CBS. I'm sure you really PO'd some people. You got me. I was a little perturbed when I was sitting there watching, and it was right at the very end of the game, and suddenly, poof, it was into some crap that I didn't care about. So
That's weird. Mine was normal. I don't know what y'all were doing, but
yeah, well, that's that Minnesota normal versus East Coast liberal elites. So
yeah.
what
Anyways,
can I say?
so about the game.
Yes.
That was yeah, that was a mild surprise that it took till the fourth quarter before SMU finally showed what they actually were. I mean, you look at the early part of that game, they just could not get anything going. I mean, Preston Stone could not get going at all in this, at least in the first half, and he struggled a lot. I think at one point he was something like 1 of 7 to start, didn't get above 50% completion until into the third quarter. And then they also rotated in Kevin Jennings, which our guests from earlier in the week actually mentioned that was probably going to happen, and he looked good. Stone and there just couldn't find anything, and then it took until the fourth quarter to realize, hey, we have this tight end that could
That's
potentially be an All-American. Let's get him the ball.
Yep.
What do you know?
Wow.
It worked.
Yes. That beautiful. And that's the combo that I really wanted to point out. Stone to Maryland. That some of the most beautiful, well executed pass plays that I have seen in a while.
That
And
game-winning touchdown was a beautiful throw.
gorgeous. Just, I mean, that's how you play football right there. And that was fun to watch. The only thing I can say is that SMU did not strike me as multidimensional when it comes down to being able to move the ball. And if you only have that one combo to Maryland, then you cannot depend on that to win all your games. The one thing that I just saw too many errors, and it's week 0. It's the first game. uh, that'll be cleaned up. Rhett Lashley will clean that up, and things will run a lot smoother. But they've got some work to do. I think everybody understands first year in the conference, there's a lot of high expectations. I've talked them up, and that's yet to be proven. We'll see. But it's certainly they've got some work to do to
Yeah,
get
definitely.
to snuff, and because they're going to run into teams, and people discount the ACC, and you always end up eating your words when you do that, so be
Yeah.
careful.
Yeah, and I don't expect them to get challenged much this upcoming week from Houston Christian. So it's a matter of just trying to get some continuity there. You had a big game in a couple of weeks against BYU, and then TCU to follow that after with a bye sprinkled in after the Houston Christian game. This is where you need to start to figure things out, because those two opponents, BYU and TCU, aren't slouches. I mean, they're not the top of the Big 12 necessarily, but they're going to be solid teams. They're going to give you a good push.
Let's look at the schedule for this coming week one of college football action in the ACC. We start out on Thursday, the 29th, so action is just around the corner. North Carolina is in your backyard. North Carolina takes on the Gophers, Minnesota.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting game. I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how this is going to go. I know there's still no real decision on quarterback that I've seen from North Carolina side. Uh, and the Gophers are currently, if you're looking at the point spreads, a game or a point and a half leader, or a point and a half in front or favorite over North Carolina. The weather, I think it's supposed to, when I last looked at the forecast for the Twin Cities, it was supposed to rain on Thursday, a chance of thunderstorms. So, hey, maybe we have our good old weather delay here in Minneapolis on Thursday night, but I expect a close game. I really have no idea what to think of Minnesota. They have a transfer quarterback up from the FCS level, but they do have a good running game. I think they're going to be solid in the trenches. I think North Carolina's best bet to win is just run Amari and Hampton.
Yeah. Well, we'll get a good look at North Carolina and what they have and what they're capable of doing, and help us determine what's going to happen in the ACC when they get into conference play. Other games on the schedule include Western Carolina at NC State, North Carolina A&T at Wake Forest. That's on Thursday. Then on Friday, the 30th, it's Elon at Duke, TCU at Stanford. And I think that Stanford's going to have their hands full.
Yeah, TCU I think is going to be better this year than they were last year. And they're coming off a championship game season a couple of years ago and kind of struggled last year. Stanford, they're still trying to build up. They just don't quite have all the talent. They obviously have some good pieces there. The quarterback situation looks good. We know we talked about in our preview of Alec Ayumanor, one of the better wide receivers in the conference, but their O-line was pretty rough last year. They were just really bad in the trenches, to be perfectly honest with you, and they need to take a big step forward if they're going to beat TCU.
So we have a big game on Saturday, the 31st. That is the Aflac kickoff game in Atlanta, Georgia, when Clemson takes on Georgia. We've got two ranked teams there. Should be a battle. We don't have a really solid feel for what Clemson's going to be able to do. And at the same time, I'll be frank about it. We're making assumptions about Georgia. If they keep losing people to handcuffs, maybe they won't have enough people to play. This game could be a shocker just in the same fashion that Florida State and Georgia Tech was. Could be, because we don't know exactly what Clemson's going to be able to deliver. They're being very keeping things close to the cuff.
And if anything's if anything is giving me indication, it looks like we will get cut-ins of Aaron Judge's at bats during the game on Saturday, as the Yankees start at 1 o'clock on Saturday, and with him potentially chasing a home run record again, we'll get cut-ins to his at bats, because that's what ESPN does. But as far as the game goes, I mean, Georgia's going to be the favorite until somebody proves them otherwise. They're currently a 13.5-point favorite. And like I said, I just don't know what to think of Clemson. I think they're going to be able to run the ball well. We think Cade Klubnik's a good quarterback. We don't know that yet. We think there's more in the tank, we believe. But again, he's got to prove it. And there's been a lot of talk about their receivers. I think that they have to prove it as well. It is kind of weird, because I feel like this game, if this game was played later in the year, I'd give Clemson more of a chance. But Georgia's more ready-made for this game.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. As you said, there's question marks around a couple of skill positions there, and we're not sure what it's going to come out to be. Other games on the schedule: UC Davis at Cal, Georgia State at Georgia Tech, Austin Peay at Louisville, Miami at Florida, Kent State at Pitt, Houston Christian at SMU, Ohio at Syracuse, Richmond at Virginia, and Virginia Tech at Vanderbilt. The only game on the rest of that schedule that intrigues me might be that Miami at Florida. I think Miami needs to really prove their chops here.
Yeah, 100%. If everyone wants to believe Miami again for the 20th straight year, they better come out and show it in this game.
Yeah.
They got to win. No excuses. If they lose, I don't know what to tell you.
They need to put Florida's coach on the hot seat from the get-go. They need to crank up the Florida message boards with talk of getting rid of the coach and the AD and the president of the school and whoever else they can get rid of. And on Monday, September 2nd, Boston College is at Florida State. I would not want to be in Boston College's shoes headed to Tallahassee. This could end up being painful.
Yeah, I when you look at it, it feels like this is kind of a get right game in a way for the Noles. When you think, they're coming off a shocking loss. They've got their first home game of the season against a conference opponent, and they're going to be out for vengeance. And they're going to have to come out and show something. Otherwise, if they struggle again against Boston College, then there are going to be some real question marks about this team.
Yep. And rightfully so.
Mm-hmm.
We shall see. That's a look at what's coming up on week 1 and our look back on what happened in week 0 with Florida State and Georgia Tech and SMU and Nevada. And coming up this week, we are going to be talking with folks from Boston College to preview their team, also Pitt and Louisville. And we'll have those available on the podcast as well. So hope you'll join us for that. Until next time, cheers.
Cool.
Thanks for listening to ACC Nation. Be sure to listen, like and subscribe to our podcast, radio, and YouTube channels by visiting accnation.net. Follow us on Instagram, X, Facebook, Mastodon, Threads, Blue Sky and Reddit at ACC Nation.
ACC Nation.